All right, welcome everyone to meeting number 2 of our Total Compensation Working Group. We're going to go ahead and dive right in. Our agenda today is we're going to just do a quick recap of meeting 1. We're going to do some sample sharing. We're going to have a section where we talk to you about a special offer we have and some next steps. From meeting 1, what we did was we did individual meet and greet.
Becky, is your PowerPoint not in presentation mode?
Probably not. Just one second. Thank you for pointing that out. I just need to reshare it.
There we go. Recap meeting 1. I see it.
Perfect. So as I was saying, we spent some time getting to know everyone in the group, and then we learned at a high level what all of you were doing. Everyone should have received the meeting minutes and the recording from last time. And we also talked a bit about the survey that we did initially with all of the customers, and we talked about the various categories and what we learned from that survey, and we kind of presented that to you at that point in time. And then we just did a brief overview of what we were expecting the working party to entail and what the expected outcomes were going to be. For today, though, what we'll be doing is talking about what can we do now with the technology that we have available currently and how all of it works together. And with that, Stephen's going to do an overview of what Strato, our documents in the cloud solution, can do. We'll talk about the data sources that are available to be incorporated into Strato documents. He'll do a demonstration of a typical build, and then he's going to actually showcase some of the total compensation statements that he's built in Strato based on the examples that we have to date and some feedback that we had received initially from everyone in the group. Without further ado, we'll move into the show and tell portion, and I'm going to turn it over to Stephen. Stephen, you can just ask me to advance slides when you need to.
Actually, can you just make me the presenter, please?
Oh, that will
some changes this morning.
Okay, that will be a lot easier then. Should be all yours.
Thank you. You see it now? Okay, slideshow. Okay, so thanks everybody. As Becky said, I'm going to take you through the whole gambit of what we've done and what we've built. And we've built everything based on things that you gave us. What I'm going to show you today are some compensation statements. They've all been normalized. In other words, all the company names have been taken out that our customers were kind enough to share with us because we actually put a few together. And what we're going to do is we're going to, come on slide. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about where this data lives, how these things are created, the types of typical components that we saw across all of the total compensation statements, the things that we can currently do now, the things that we have in development based on the feedback you guys gave us from the initial calls that we had, surveys, and meeting number 1. But we're kind of going to take you through all of it today. To start with, though, before we get to any level of demonstration, we're going to do the background, right? So what we're using to produce these statements is our product called Strato. It is our cloud-based solution. It's kind of like the next iteration of Easy Documents, if you would. And hold on, someone's not on mute here. Let's see who that is. There it goes. It's the future iteration of Easy Documents. And in fact, later in life, there'll be some announcements at the end of the year. It's probably going to be our future platform for almost everything. But when we're talking about total compensation statements, we need certain bits of data. And we're fortunate enough that most of this stuff we had in the system. When we talk about the types of data that we're going to need to build these, and I'll show you where it lives, is Employee Central. Obviously, that's where people are moving to the SuccessFactors HR management system. But then when we talk about SuccessFactors, there were also other things that people were using. They were using compensation. They were using variable comp. There are a variety of different modules out there that we don't support out of the box. And I'm going to talk to you about how that works. But essentially, any of the data that you can query in SuccessFactors, we actually have a hook into that. So we are going to be able to get the compensation data. It is currently in development. It was one of the things that we spoke about through our discovery that we needed to do, and we're going to do it. If you're moving to any sort of, as long as your payroll, I'll put it this way, is in an ECC-based system, we can get at it as well. So even if you're SAP Cloud Payroll, Employee Central Payroll, you have your on-premise ECC, we can get at that data, and we will talk about the external data sources as well. I believe John from TECO last time mentioned he had pension data outside of the system. I've talked with other customers like Huntington Ingalls. They have similar situations that they include into their statements, and we'll talk about how we're going to get that as well. But first, the real-time stuff, right? So almost all of this, again, just like you would have in all of our other solutions, is real-time. When we use Strato, when we turn it on, it has a catalog of fields that come along with it. What you see today is going to be very similar to the drag and drop type stuff you see in Easy Reporter and even Easy Documents. And when we turn it on, essentially what we do is, if you signed up for Strato, it's a platform or software as a service web application, and we spin up a separate instance for each of our customers. And when that thing comes online, we point it at your SuccessFactors system, and it actually goes out and finds all the fields that are out there when it comes to Employee Central, and actually recruiting as well, but that's really off topic for today. But it knows what fields you have in your Employee Central system. There's a metadata engine out there that goes out and figures it out, because obviously certain people have different things turned on, certain people have different customizations, but we figure it out there. In addition, you get out of the box, you also get talent. And talent hasn't come up yet in our total compensation statements yet, at least the examples, but I could see where it would come in, where if you wanted to put someone's performance score that they had for the year on there, if you're using the performance and goals talent portion of SuccessFactors, that is also going to be a capability as well. What doesn't come out of the box are some of the other bits of master data. These APIs that SuccessFactors publish are quite complex, so we kind of came up with a way to say, hey, you know what? Instead of us adding every single API, because they take time to do, learning, compensation, all that sort of stuff, what we could do is leverage the ad hoc query engine in SuccessFactors. So essentially what I'm saying is, if you can query the data using SuccessFactors ad hoc query, then you can actually get that data inside of Strato. So what we're gonna do in our next iteration is get some compensation information. And I already have the query built, I just don't have it linked in, into one of these documents to talk about how that's gonna work, and hopefully find somebody who will do a proof of concept with us. The other data that is real time is the payroll, right? And Easy Reporter is going to be the engine that drives that. The way it works is, after we spin up Strato, what you may not know is your Easy Reporter, when you installed it, actually comes with a service out there that it just sits there and does nothing unless you turn it on. And what that web service does is actually allows some of our web reporting, and including Strato, to actually link in to your SAP system and extract data out of it. And there's of course some basis setup that has to go on with it. There's usernames and passwords that have to get exchanged so everything stays secure. But essentially that's how we're going to get the payroll data. So Strato can talk to you all of these different things. I would say the setup for this is probably a day if you get the right people in the room to turn all this stuff on, but it's not overly complicated. So that's all the real-time data, and the data that you see today when I get payroll and the demographic information out of the system, it is querying it in real time. And we have the not so real-time data, right? So this would be, John said he had a pension vendor. One of the customers I talked to had 3 different pension vendors out there. So this would be a heck of a file we'd have to put together, but we could definitely do it. Essentially, if you want to include external data, the idea we came up with was to use the Easy Reporter file import. For those of you who have never used it before, Easy Reporter can consume a file, and that acts as fields on your report. So essentially, that file would become fields in your report. Strato would be running that report as a data source for your document, and those fields would become available in Strato. The trick is right now, and we're debating whether or not we enhance this functionality, but we probably won't enhance it until it becomes a deal breaker. You can do one sheet. You can import one sheet per document. In theory, you could technically have multiple reports and multiple sheets. We'd like to get it down to just one sheet. Maybe we can merge the data together. We haven't seen anybody's actual pension import yet, so we have to determine how complex this might be. But in theory, getting external data into one of these things is totally possible. Before we get into the actual statements themselves that we built, pretty much every statement had very similar sections out there. I didn't find one that was like, well, there were a couple that were missing retirement. Pretty much every one of these statements had these sections, and when you see the documents, it'll all make sense. And you probably could think that this is obvious off the top of your head, but if you've never really gone through or seen other examples of total compensation statements, you just have one, know that these are the common things. The first section, everybody's got a welcome page. All right, so it's there to say, how you doing? Thank you for working at the company. We value you. Here's the money that we spent for you. You're going to see the money that we spent on you this coming year. And a couple of them I saw actually include the company's past year's performance. I assuming you would put it in there if the performance was good, because you want your employees to stay, because I believe total compensation statements are used as a retention vehicle for your employees. But definitely everyone's got a welcome page, different formats of it and how they laid it out, and you'll see that as we get through these different documents, but they all pretty much had it. Then you had the pay. And this is obviously the breakdown of what you want to show an employee for pay. And I've seen it go all the way down to wage type levels. As you can see on the right-hand side, this was one of our customers, this is a Canadian customer actually, I think, out there. And then you had very simple ones that just had a few box earnings from a T4, so also a Canadian one out there. I would say from a complexity standpoint, you're thinking of rolling these things out, I don't think you have to include everything in the kitchen sink out there. I'm going to show you some documents that came from very large companies, and some of them had very minimal data in it. Some of them, smaller companies, like the one on the right here, had a plethora of data in them. So what I'm saying is when you go to roll these things out in version 1, if you're currently doing them, if you're not currently doing them, I don't think you don't have to go crazy, right? You don't have to include, oh my God, we better put everything on here. Maybe you just sum some stuff up. But I don't think everybody needs the exact detail. At least, like I said, some major companies weren't giving their employees the full detail on it. Benefits enrollment, I would say more than half had what the employee was currently enrolled in on their statements out there. So their medical, their dental, their vision, any other program that they might be enrolled in. There was definitely a section for that. It didn't typically have the costs associated with it. But it typically had your coverage level, right? Employee plus spouse that went along with the plan. Then we get to retirement. This was not common in all the documents, though, to be honest with you. Sometimes they would just have a 401k balance, if that. Sometimes they wouldn't even have that. 401k for you Canadian folks, as most of you already know, is one of our social insurance programs out there that allow us to save money. But I did see this one was pretty in-depth. That's why I included it in here. It not only said, you're enrolled in a retirement program, it even, in this top right-hand paragraph, it was estimating your Social Security or your social insurance, if you would, that you're going to get paid out if you retired at a certain age. It had things like deferred comp for different folks, and it even had like future values. If you had a certain balance in your account, what it might be at a certain percent. So this one, like I said, I didn't see retirement in a lot of them, but if you were to do retirement, this was probably the more complex one that I saw out there in the sections that it included. And then charting, it's not done yet. It's coming in R1 2019. We do have it on the roadmap out there for Strato, but this was in half the documents as well. So 50% of the ones we came across and got a hold of, and we probably got a hold of about 12. I only built 4 because they had covered sections of everything. But essentially, we're going to have to put charting in for most people if half want charts and half don't. All right, let's take a look. Does anybody have any questions before we actually go into the system? Okay, let's pop on over. Let's start. Let me just refresh something else because, of course, that expired while we're doing something else with this login because it takes a second. There we go. Okay, we'll start with the solution that everybody knows and loves, Easy Reporter, because actually the data that I'm going to pull, some of this today is coming from Easy Reporter and some of it is coming from SuccessFactors. So we'll kind of start where I put it. As I mentioned, as we went through the slides, Easy Reporter can be a data source for your documents out there. I'm sorry, yeah, for your total compensation documents. And those documents are going to have different sections, right? You could have your employer benefit cost. You could just have the cash component that you paid these people. So in other words, you could have multiple different sections to your document, which might be multiple different reports. A report that has your gross payroll that you were paid, employer benefits, like I just said. If you're keeping time and quota inside of Easy Reporter, that might be here as well. But essentially, it works kind of just like Easy Documents did. You might have let's run this one. This is just a single one-line report with a variant out there, so we can run this guy. In fact, I'll rerun it full screen because it's a little tiny. Total compensation statement. And this is actually the report that I used because I had, like I said, some people do very simplified total rewards, total comp statements. This would be a simplified version of it. But it's got your fields, right? First name, last name, might have your salary out there. And then of course it's going to start getting things, different wage type based things that you might have been paid. Maybe you had commission, maybe you had a bonus, what the company paid for your full ER medical, if you're doing employer related stuff. But it's a report. Most of you on this call would know how to build something like this. And then we total things up, like what was your total ER medical? Because that might be a line item on your document that you want to display. But this is the way the Easy Reporter portion of it works. So you have a bunch of reports inside of your ECC system to pull your payroll information or import data if we have to go that route. And then Strato kind of makes it all available inside the system out there. And that's really where we're going to go now, because that's really where the fun part of all this is. Let's pop on over. This is my Employee Central system. You can see there's all these tiles down here for Strato. Inside each of these tiles, you can run certain documents. You might run a document for anyone in the company because you have HR level rights to everybody in the world. You might be running documents for your team out there. I don't think a manager, I don't really see managers delivering total reward statements. They're usually mailed or it's a self-service type action, but you could. Annual salary letters, I do see managers go in here, run it, give it to the employee. And then of course, the ideal way, in my opinion, is to have employees run these themselves, right? And a person can go in here and run the document for themselves, like a total reward statement. This might take it a split second, and if it's slow, we will jump. Oh, that actually came up fairly quick. SuccessFactors, depending on the day of the week, runs really fast because we are in a partner demo system, or it runs really slow. And it's not really behaving right now. But I'll get it to the selection screen, and then we'll actually go into Strato to look at the document because I can generate it from there too. Because right now we're in SuccessFactors. Like one document just to pop up. There we go. Oop. So essentially a user could come in here into their SuccessFactors system, or we have other tiling based systems that are available to people who don't have Employee Central out there. We have a web UI that comes with Easy Reporter. Strato itself also has its own tiling system. And you go in here and you pick your document, and this I'm not going to generate from here because I just know it's not going to perform properly. But you might pick an employee if you're a manager. If this tile was set up for to run just for yourself, it just would have popped up the document out there. But you do have some capabilities to determine who you want to run this for. This is anybody that you have security access to. So if it was your team, it might just be 10 people. I have HR level access, so I have everybody out here. And you generate the document, which I apologize, I'm definitely not going to do from here because we'll just sit a minute the way this thing's performing now. But what we can do is actually go into Strato itself. And this does take a second to warm up, but once it's warm, it goes just fine. So Strato, this is actually the application that we created. So this is living right now on Amazon Web Services. It is connected through our configuration to SAP SuccessFactors. That connection for anybody technical on the phone. To set it up, we do have to get on with you and somebody from your basis team, because there are secure certificates that are generated in SuccessFactors that we have to put in Strato, because everything's done through a single sign-on. So we keep the whole thing secure. So there is another little bit of setup out there. I can do it in 10 minutes. It's usually just finding the right people in the room to set it all up. That's the hard part. Here we go. This is Strato. Strato is our new platform for generating documents out there. And we're going to go in here into this document template library. What we do is, it's kind of got a decent organization system. You can create different folders by the different types of documents that you have. Some might be employee-based from Employee Central. Some might be based out of recruiting. Some might be based out of the talent module out there. So it's really done by the catalog of data that you're going after. It's not that you can't cross-pollinate some of these things depending on the API, but the way we organize it is by those modules. Come on. There we go. Let's go over here by catalog. That's our document we're going to run in a second. So we have this thing organized. There's certain documents you might build that are just for Easy Reporter. You might have user customized sections of SuccessFactors that you're reporting on or creating documents for. You might be building employee-based documents, which is what we're going to do. Bonus letters, certificates of employment. Let's go on over. Welcome packets, total comp statements, right? We got these nice total comp statements, and I'll pull them up for you in PDF form after I'm done with this to just show you what we've walked through, and we'll be happy to attach them in any of the meeting notes. But here we are, total rewards demo. So this would be a document. This is the one I would have generated on the homepage if things would have worked correctly. We're going to go in here and modify this. So for those of you who have seen the easy documents, the premise is kind of similar. It's a mail merge, right? We have some fields up here. Ooh, how'd that one get up there? Let's get rid of that. We have some fields up here, first name, last name, paragraph of data, right? Our welcome page. Thank you for working at SpinFX IT out there. And then you have different sections of your document, and I'll explain how this one works in a minute, right? You might tell somebody on the welcome page, here's your overall pay, here's your health and wellness we gave you, here's your financial security, and I left these things blank because we're going to populate them today to show you how it works. And then you might get into the detail of your total compensation statement. This is one of the ones that I would say is simple, right? We're just including a couple different components out there of someone's pay, their base salary, maybe they got commission because you're running a sales organization, what the employer gave you for your 401k, medical benefits out there, you can lump them all together. And then eventually you have your total EE compensation. So this is a very simple 2-page total rewards letter. You could probably build this thing on the data for this because we actually have the template already built. You could probably build the data for this in a few hours if you knew your wage types. But before we get into adding some fields to the report, these are different sections, right? What if you don't have sales commission? What if you weren't a 401k eligible employee? You don't want these things to show up. So just like some of the more complex ones, people can have 1,000 different wage types out there, and some of the more complex ones had like 1,000 wage types on them. And you don't want those wage types to show for certain people. So depending on how you built the report, you may have to filter out this section to say, you know what, if you don't have sales commission, don't show it. Pretty much anything in Strato, so where the commission, because it's pulling this in from a report, is not equal to 0 out there. So this will only show if the commission is not equal to 0. And you can have very, very complex types of conditions out there with Strato. So all the ands and ors and things that you're familiar with in some of our other solutions, you can build them out based on, depending on how complex your different scenario is. Let's cancel this so it doesn't ruin my filter. Good. Now, this is just a basic editor, just like you would have in Easy Documents, except it's way more powerful. When we designed Strato a couple of years ago, I told the architects, I'm like, I'm going to take these Word documents that are Word templates from Microsoft's actual library, and I want to be able to build them in Strato, because we know with Easy Docs sometimes formatting is not stellar. And I was able to do that within Strato. You have full editing toolbar, different colors, bunch of different fonts out there. And you can see this is a pretty decent looking document. And when we look at the other ones today, you can see they're even better looking than this, and they were all generated inside of Strato. But I just took off first name and last name. Where do all these fields live? Well, Strato kind of works like Easy Documents in that you're going to pick some fields to put on your report. This library is pretty large. When you hook in Employee Central, there's thousands of fields out there, and you'll see what I mean. There's also a folder here for Easy Reporter when I go to put in some of that pay data in a second. But essentially what the end user does is you design your document. I always pretty much do my design first out there. And then you can kind of, if you don't know where these things are, I know where a bunch of them are, but I usually just search first name. If we thought SAP was complex with having cost center everywhere in the world, first name and names in Employee Central are everywhere. Through training, I'll teach you the correct one to use, but essentially it's this one that gets the employee's first name, because there's first names for every other relationship that exists in Employee Central, and there's a lot of them. And then we can, of course, get last name. You can see all you gotta do is find the field, you click on it, wherever your cursor is, it sticks it in there. Last name. There we go. So we've just included some Employee Central fields into our total rewards letter. But now we need some of that pay information down here. What we've done, and we probably missed it on the prior screen, is I have linked in an easy report to this. This report, I've already told our official catalog that it exists out there because we turned on the synchronization. We're not going to go through that technical fun stuff today, but just know we got this report on there. But there are a bunch of different reports that we could have included. Let's go in here, right? So all these reports I've already synced into Strato to say that they are available. And just by checking the box, we can pick the report that we want. So typically I would say for a standard setup, if you are using Easy Reporter reports in Strato, you're sticking them in a specific folder in Easy Reporter. You're locking that thing down so no one's messing with it, kind of just like you would do with company reporting out there. And I've added in this total comp statement demo report because this thing has fields on it. And the neat part is they're automatically included when I check it into the field selector out there for Easy Reporter. So we can go into this catalog, get our total comp statement, and let's see, here's your pay. Let's set that to, I believe I had that as the total cash component. We'll add that in. We will add in your health and wellness, which I believe I had as the total ER medical. And your financial security, which I believe I had as total EE retirement. There we go. We've just added these fields into our document. And this thing is going to run in real time. So if we just had, this is actually hooked up to SuccessFactors, so we're going to see a bunch of SuccessFactors users in here. You would just see your on-premise people if you just had it hooked into the on-premise system, but we're going to run it. Oh, he's the first guy on the list. Let's run for Aaron, and we'll preview it. So this is like edit mode, right? So we're in edit mode. We can make some changes to our document. No, we can't. You know what Steven didn't do? Steven didn't save it. I made changes and I didn't save it. There we go. Let's close this one. I gotta go to meeting. Close you. There we go. Successfully saved. Now we can preview this. It just takes a second to preview. It really depends on how much of a graphics package you have in here. It can take anywhere from a few seconds. I have one rewards letter that's loaded with graphics that takes about a minute for it to generate. And you obviously would not be on a demo instance like I am. Yay. There we go. Dear Aaron Chan, that field I had at top is gone now. So we got that populated. Here's his pay, his health and wellness. His financial security is totaled up. But remember, when we were looking at the document, there were those sections for commission. This guy didn't have commission out there, so it doesn't show up. So we're showing his base salary. He did have employer 401k. He had some medical out there, and we totaled up his compensation for 2017. So that's pretty straightforward. Before, I'm going to take you through the actual examples that we built out so you can see the different components that are out there. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. These are all examples of documents that our customers gave us. So what we did was we took them and took out their names and all that sort of fun stuff. And they're PDFs, so it's not like you can edit or do anything with them anyway. You would literally have to rebuild the whole thing. But these are some examples that we had. This one, welcome page is on the left-hand side. I kind of like that. Looks kind of neat. But this one has every wage type in the world out there. So all the way from their performance stock, restricted stock. They didn't really group anything up together, like just grouping medical, grouping health, or something like that. They literally detailed pretty much everything out. This one also included your costs as well. So that's something we've seen. In fact, this is the only one I think I saw it in where it shows what you paid for medical versus what we paid for medical out there. In this case, it's probably looks pretty good because it's a drastic difference. So you're very happy to work at this company because they shelled out a ton of money for you to work here. I think that was, I don't know why there's this thing. Graphs and charting again, right? So this one, which one was this one for? Potential value of your retirement savings account. So this was kind of a theme across two documents, right? They took their retirement portions and said, based on this, if maybe a market rate of 7%, this is what you might have at your current contribution in 20 years. This is obviously a highly compensated employee out there, but you can see the themes that are going on here based on what we talked about before. And I think that's really the only differentiator. Stock purchase price was in here. This one listed the benefits out there. And this one is actually the most detailed of all the documents that we have. It has pretty much the detail for every wage type out there. It does detail every benefit they have, even includes things like short-term and long-term disability, flexible spending, survivor benefits, paid time off benefits. So this one pretty much has everything in the kitchen sink out there. And then you get something that's a little simpler. This one's actually near and dear to my heart because this was my old total compensation statement from a company that I used to work for many moons ago. Again, has the chart, has the welcome page, looks kind of nice out here. But this is why I like this one, and I didn't realize it actually when I worked for the company. This one really simplifies what they're telling people. It's not every wage type in the world. It's just, you know, what you were paid in cash, and then it sums up kind of your other employer-based benefits out there. But it never really goes crazy with every detailed wage type out there, which is fine. Honestly, I don't need to know the detail of what FSA I had this year. That's on my pay stub, right? So simplified so this one's simplified when it comes to the pay, but it's not simplified when it comes to the retirement and Social Security and your actual benefits themselves. And I wonder this, when I was talking, the ones that have all the detail and the wage types, that was kind of driven by the compensation team, and some teams are separate. This document, I know, because I helped build it way back in the day, it was driven by the benefits team, which is I'm wondering why there's less pay information and more benefits information on the sheet. So they do the full thing again, talking about your retirement, what it might be worth. They even included Social Security. I am not sure how we did this back in the day to estimate what your Social Security monies might actually be in the end, but somehow we did. And they did get, where is it? They did get very detailed in the benefit plans that you were enrolled in. So they made it look really nice. Your different retirement programs, they have this whole thing called the Real Advantage out there, which is kind of the theme for working at this company. But they did a pretty good job on this one when it came to a benefit standpoint. But again, I liked it because it was simplified on the payroll side. So from a maintenance standpoint going forward, it's easier to update every year. This one, and the only reason I picked this one is because I like the design of it. This one was actually an offer letter from a customer, but the offer letter got very detailed in what they were offering the employee. So again, welcome page, but then they got into some pretty straight detail, and I just like the formatting of it and the layout, which is why I included it as one of our sample templates out there in case the customer wanted to use it. But it breaks things down, and it was an offer, but it had annual cash, long-term incentives, thrift, retirement, all those fun things that were in the rest of the documents. Again, I just like the layout out there of it, I believe. And then it broke down different sections. So another theme that we saw is like when we saw retirement, they'll say retirement, and then they'll explain what retirement is. This one did the same thing, but for your pay. That's why it was different as well. So if you included the line item for base salary, you might want to describe what that actually means to the employee, what your annual cash bonus means. So you're not just taking, if you are going to provide all the insane level detail, you can also provide a description of why that is important to the employee. Because again, this is a retention vehicle. This is important to you because of X, Y, Z. Like you keep letting them know over and over again why you're so important to them, why what we've given to you is important. And that's the nice part about Strata, where you're literally just typing in text. You can pull in a field out there. So it's not a complex thing to do. Writing the verbiage and designing where you want there is probably more of the hard part of that. And then this one, and the only reason I included this one, this was pretty basic out there, super basic in formatting style. If you were going to print these things, you'd be saving on ink with this one because it's really black and white. There's a few colors out there. This one actually included what the company actually did for the year. So total what they paid in payroll and benefits cost, it actually broke that down. This was the only one I saw that in where the company actually, it wasn't like the performance of what the company did. It was the holistic number. This is everything that we paid out across the board for our company. So I thought that was a neat little piece of information that I hadn't seen anywhere else. I don't know why I got this extra page in some of these. Pretty simple in what it broke down to, and so they have these sections up here for what's going on your T4. So this is obviously a Canadian total compensation statement, and then they broke down the earnings again. But there's not a lot of flair in this, right? And I guess we can put the amounts in. There's not a lot of flair, gray borders, black, red, simple colors out there. statutory deductions. Again, these are things that are on your pay stub that you'd have out there. I don't really know if I would consider this a compensation thing that you're compensated this because it's a deduction, but they did include some of this stuff on this statement. And then you probably have your time off down here as well to include. And that pretty much sums it up, right? So we have these 4 different templates out there that we put together just for proof that we could do it, because essentially we did. I know we weren't looking at them before, but if I go back on screen, document catalog. Why are you doing this to me? I was just going to prove that it's not smoke and mirrors. These things actually do exist inside of Strato. And the nice part about Strato is templates are uploadable, right? So you can take a template, move it to another system. It works just like a template in Easy Documents. There you go. Sweet. Here they are. All right. So we did put them all together. They were generated directly out of Strato. Obviously, most things are hard coded in right now. I didn't have time to put all the detail from every different report in here, but we will do that in the future. So with that, Bex, that's kind of the show and tell. That's total compensation statements with Strato from beginning to end. We talked about what's coming. So we are going to build the charting thing. We are working on getting all the different other modules from SuccessFactors to be eligible to be put in the Strato, and the external data things that some of our customers spoke to us about, we should be able to handle as well.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. Before I jump into this last section, were there any questions from what you saw for Stephen? Do you want to point out that a couple of times, or actually multiple times, Stephen, you mentioned the use of SuccessFactors, and I don't know that it was entirely clear. You don't have to be live or be using SuccessFactors in order to use Strato, correct?
That is correct. You do not need SuccessFactors to use Strato. It will work directly with your UCC system. No SuccessFactors required.
All right, but just know that, wherever you're at in your journey into the cloud, it will work, whether you're all on-premise now. It is a cloud-based solution, but it will reach to your on-premise information real time, like Stephen was saying. As you move into the cloud in the future using Employee Central, those data sources, as Stephen was showing, actually will come into play for you. So to move into this next section, title it, What Do You Say? When we first described the total compensation statement project or the working party, we said we'd go through a series of meetings, which we would have 4 meetings. And then on the 4th meeting, we were going to open it up to, what's in it for me, allowing you to take advantage of an opportunity to try it out for a period of time and see if you liked it. Our CEO actually bumped up the schedule for us and decided that we wanted to make that offer available now. And really what we want to do is, for those volunteers that want to work with us, no pressure, but we would really like to partner with a few of the organizations that are in the working party. And we want to talk to you about what is currently possible in the future related to what are your ultimate total compensation statements to be. So you may already have some, and we could certainly work with you to replicate that, just to show you how easy that is in the cloud-based solution. Or if you're really thinking about making some changes and you've seen some really innovative things already that Stephen showcased today, then we can help you to work together to develop the product or the statement itself, so you can see what it looks like with your data. We wouldn't just be turning you loose on your own with no direction. We would actually partner with you. In other words, the experts here at SpinFX IT would help you to set the specifications for your statement, work with you to get the service turned on, and then also to develop that statement for you in transferring that knowledge and how it's actually developed all along the way. So you have a really, almost like a mini training session, and this of course is really just partnering with us. So it's really it's not a commitment to long-term use the product. It's really an exposure to you because you've agreed to be part of this working party already, to see it and use it in your own systems now. So we're looking for some volunteers that want to partner with us to develop a working model in their system. We're looking for 3 to 4. If 5 or 6 or 7 come to us, we're probably not going to turn anybody down. Let's just be honest here. We like to help as many people as possible, but we really want to use the opportunity to get feedback from people on, what do we really need for the organizations to create their statements? What kinds of usability things will make their lives easier? What are they doing with their statements? How often are they changing them? Will they change them more often because it's easier for them to do? Those kinds of things. And as I'm saying here, what's in it for me, meaning you, the free stuff, meaning you, the ability to use Strato now for a period of time. So by volunteering, what does it really mean? You can expect a partnership with guidance on building your statement now. We're going to allow you to try the solution now rather than waiting until the end of the working party. We'll explore the possibility with you to keep this ready-made statement once you've built it, and if you want to just continue to use it, you'll have the ability to do that. And then we will validate with you and discuss what are your needs now, what do you think your needs might be in the future. If you think this is something that you might be interested in, I offer that you will email me to volunteer to participate. I'm going to let Stephen cover this slide because there's a few requirements that will be required, and so with his role as a solution architect, I'm going to let him explain these finer points. Stephen?
Sure. So it's going to be me or one of our other consultants out there helping you build one of these things. So obviously there is some commitment on your side, and there's a few technical items that go along with this. So one, we would need a resource on your company to help design and help us gather the requirements for the document. And nobody needs to be on site to do that. We could probably do it remotely, set up some sessions to get it done. And depending on how complex it is, it could take 2 days. It could take a week. There's definitely one in my stack of stuff that I did not build that definitely would have taken me a week to figure out where everything was. You do have to update Easy Reporter. And honestly, I'm not sure if I put the right version in here, if it's R2 2018, but I'm pretty sure it is. Oh yes, it is, because we added the payroll synchronization code. Yes, so one of the requirements would be you would have to update to 2018 R2. And that could be in a dev box. It could be in a sandbox that has data, but you would need a version of Easy Reporter on the latest system. From a timing standpoint, we have to do some things too. So we would spin up an instance for you that takes about half the day. And the technical portion of it, the manual work, is a couple button presses, but it takes a while for the instance to procure, build itself, find all the fields and things of that nature. Whichever system we put Strato into, we would have to get some users set up, just like you would do if you were doing Easy Reporter training back in the day. We did all that. We need to find some test users that we can that have good payroll results that we can assign user IDs to make sure we can pull the data correctly. We do need a portion of your basis team to help us with all the connections out there. It's probably half a day's worth of time. Again, it's just finding the right people. That's what I always find is the hardest part. Does this person have access to this portion of SuccessFactors to generate this certificate? Do we need another person to help set up some of the on-premise SAP hookups? And depending on how, if you don't have SuccessFactors, some of that definitely goes away, but there is a period of time we will need a basis resource. And then how did it go, right? So the back and forth between us and the partnership, there's obviously going to be a couple days in there, but it's not an overly complex thing. I think if you call this a pilot or whatever you want to set up, but there definitely is some time and resources that between SpinFX and y'all, we're going to have to do together. Becky?
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Any questions on any of that, anyone? Okay, next up. So next up, happy to have all of you volunteer now by emailing me. This will be included. You'll have my email address from the meeting invite. My email address is here. And of course, the meeting minutes will be sent out along with the recording to everyone and making it open to everyone now. So I'm hoping to get some email in the next few days that will say, yep, I really want to jump on board. That being said, future meeting content, meeting 3, scheduled right now for September 18th from 3 to 4:30. We're going to hopefully review the live outcome of some of our volunteers, those that are volunteering now. Along with that, originally our plan was for us to spend some time talking about what your current states are. So we were hoping that each organization will spend about 5 minutes talking about, with examples, hopefully you can come up with a sample to show of what is your current process. I will elaborate a little bit on this prior to the meeting, but if you want to shoot me a PDF of a sample of what you have now, we can actually include that in the slideshow to kind of streamline the way that we're going to be showing things. Might make it a little bit easier as far as the presentation is concerned. But again, about 5 minutes per organization. What's your current process to deliver your total compensation statements if you have them? If you don't have them, then you'll just be learning from everyone else. We want to make it a very active discussion about what's there, and of course we want to be able to showcase what we've developed with some of our volunteers. The last meeting scheduled for October 25th from 3 to 4 o'clock or 4:30, depending on the time that we need. It's a wrap, or is it? And where do we go from here? We'll talk again about making Strato available in a beta free version for you to explore further if you didn't volunteer up front. And of course, there's no obligation there. If you choose to not take advantage, or if it's bad timing for you, then we understand. We will thank you for your participation, and I'll move on from there. Are there any other questions? If any of you out there are going to be in Vegas, the Success Connect conference, make sure you look us up. We'll have a booth there. We're one of the sponsors. Stephen and Paige will both be there, along with our CEO, global CEO, and some of our architects from across the globe. So we look forward to talking with all of you while you're there. And if you're not, reach out to us at any time. We're always here to help you with anything. There are no further questions. Then I will call our meeting to a close, and thank you all for your participation today. Any questions? All right, then. I will let everyone have some time back in their day. Looks like you're going to get back about a little over a half hour. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we will be speaking to you all very soon. Thanks so much.